My husband brought home a critically injured Omega. Just as I finished treating his wounds, my phone pushed a trending post to my screen. In love with my savior, and he's my fated match. What should I do? I meant to swipe past it, but somehow I found myself clicking in. The poster described their dilemma. I had an accident today and almost died. He saved me. When he held me, my heart raced so hard my pheromones went out of control. I found out later he seems to be my fated match. But he's already married, and his partner is a beta. The comments were buzzing. Wow. Fated match? 100% compatibility. That's destiny. If you like him, go for it. AO pairs are the best. A beta? What kind of obstacle is that? Betas can't understand the attraction between alphas and omegas. I stared at the screen, my fingers frozen. Wasn't this describing my husband? Chapter 1. My name is Oliver, an ordinary beta. My husband of 3 years, Michael, is a top-tier alpha. Our marriage was seen by many as a poor match. He is a rising star in the business world with pheromones like strong spirits, while I am just a surgeon from a modest family with no scent at all. But a marriage is like a pair of shoes. Only the person wearing them knows if they fit. For 3 years, our life was peaceful. He focused on his career, I focused on my work. We lived alongside each other, offering quiet companionship. I thought it would always be this way, until that night. Michael burst through the door carrying a blood-stained, unconscious Omega. The usually stoic alpha actually looked panicked. Oliver, save him. His voice was tense as he carefully laid the man on the guest bed. I went to work immediately, cleaning wounds, suturing, internal bleeding management, IVs. As a surgeon, these steps were muscle memory. The young Omega, Noah, was severely injured with multiple fractures, but fortunately, no vital organs were hit. It took nearly 4 hours to stabilize him. Michael stayed by his side the entire time, his brow furrowed, his eyes fixed on that pale, exquisite face. His name is Noah, Michael explained quietly. There was a car crash on my way back. His car went over the guardrail. I happened to be passing by, so I saved him. I nodded, asking no questions, merely rubbing my temples in exhaustion. He'll live. He needs rest. You watch him for the first half of the night. I'll take the second half. Michael hesitated as if to say something, but finally just patted my shoulder. Thank you for your hard work. During the second half of the night, Noah developed a fever. His pheromones began to leak out uncontrollably. A sweet peach scent, the signature fragrance of an Omega. I administered suppressants and fever reducers, staying by the bed to monitor his vitals. As dawn approached, his temperature finally dropped. I let out a sigh of relief and checked my phone out of habit. A local trending post popped up. In love with my savior, and he's my fated match. What should I do? The post was made just a few hours ago. The author described being saved from a car crash by a handsome alpha and falling for his powerful pheromones the moment they woke up. Even more fated was the strong pheromone resonance they felt, indicating a near 100% compatibility rate. The comments section was a mess. Fated match? This is like a movie. Wait, the savior is married to a beta? Betas are irrelevant. AO pairs are the natural law. My fingers went numb. The time, the location, the events, everything matched. Noah had been awake, and they were fated matches. In that moment, a flood of strange information rushed into my mind. I saw another version of the story. It turned out I was living inside a melodramatic novel. The protagonists were Michael and Noah, the fated pair. I was merely the cannon fodder beta spouse who stood in the way of their true love. In the book, I would become consumed by jealousy, using petty schemes to frame Noah, eventually causing Michael to lose all respect for me and divorce me. Michael and Noah would then overcome obstacles to become the couple everyone envied. I looked up at the sleeping Noah. He was young and beautiful, possessing that delicate, fragile beauty that Omegas have, the kind that makes people want to protect them. Then I looked toward the door. Michael's lingering scent of strong spirits still drifted through the hall. A fated match. According to the plot, I should start feeling threatened now. I should act like a clown, desperately trying to save my marriage only to become a laughingstock. I gave a small, quiet laugh and locked my phone. How unfortunate for the plot. I'm a person who hates acting, especially when the script is this uncomfortable. If we are destined to part, why make it ugly? A clean, dignified exit is more my style. At dawn, Noah woke up. He opened his eyes, his gaze wandering before landing on me with a timid gratitude. Did you save me? He asked softly. I'm a doctor. It's my job, I said calmly. How are you feeling? Any discomfort? He shook his head, a faint blush appearing on his pale face, but his eyes drifted toward the door as if searching for someone. The gentleman who carried me in. Where is he? My husband went to the office, I replied plainly, ignoring the flash of disappointment in his eyes. Michael had indeed left for work early, leaving me with instructions to take good care of the guest. He probably felt that I, his beta wife, should naturally handle all the trouble he brought home, including an Omega who was his fated match and had fallen for him at first sight. Chapter 2. For the next few days, Noah recuperated in the guest room. I fulfilled my duties as a doctor, changing his dressings, checking his vitals, and adjusting his diet. Noah was very quiet. Most of the time, he just stared out the window or secretly checked something on his phone. Occasionally, when he looked at me, his eyes were incredibly complex. I could guess what he was looking at. That post remained highly popular, becoming the hottest relationship topic on the local forum. The original poster later updated it with many details, describing how handsome and powerful their savior was, and how gentle and considerate he could be, and how utterly ordinary and boring the beta spouse was, how unworthy they were of such an outstanding alpha. The comment section was almost unanimously encouraging him to pursue true love, arguing that a 100% compatibility rate was the will of heaven and could not be defied. I scrolled through those comments, feeling nothing at all. I even wanted to laugh a little. The will of heaven? If this was the will of heaven, that a married alpha casually saving someone on the side of the road would stumble upon their so-called fated match, then God was truly too unreliable. A week later, Noah's injuries stabilized, and he was able to get out of bed and walk around. Michael started coming home noticeably more often, claiming he was checking on the patient. They would sometimes exchange a few words in the living room. Mostly, it was Noah softly expressing his gratitude, while Michael maintained a polite, superficial distance. But I could feel it. The pheromones of strong spirits and sweet peach were uncontrollably drawing towards each other in the air, growing stronger by the day. A 100% compatibility rate was like two magnets. The closer they got, the stronger the pull. This was a physiological instinct entirely independent of willpower. The way Michael looked at Noah also grew more complicated with each passing day. Enough. It was time for this farce to end early. I have always been a man of action. Since I already knew the ending, there was no need to drag things out and waste what little affection we had left in meaningless entanglement. I pulled some strings and quietly obtained a copy of Michael and Noah's pheromone compatibility test report. Looking at the glaring 100% on the screen, I let out a soft laugh, just as I thought. Then I drafted a divorce agreement. The terms were very simple. I only asked for a sum of compensation sufficient to cover the rest of my life. It was very fair. It gave Mr. Michael plenty of face while securing my future livelihood. I printed out the compatibility report and placed it in an envelope along with the signed and thumbprinted divorce agreement. After a moment of thought, I grabbed a sticky note and wrote a single line. Let's divorce. What you need is an Omega. There was no resentment, no accusation. It was as calm as stating that the weather was nice today. I placed the envelope in the most conspicuous spot on the living room coffee table and began packing my luggage. I didn't have many belongings. Most were medical textbooks and professional materials. I only packed a few sets of clothes I wore often, leaving the rest in the walk-in closet. I didn't spare a second glance at that massive walk-in closet that occupied an entire wall, which solely belonged to Michael. Pulling my suitcase to the door, I took one last look at the place where I had lived for 3 years. The interior was done by a top-tier designer Michael had hired. It was cold and luxurious, but it never felt like a home. I had never truly considered this place my home. Now that I was leaving, there was nothing to be reluctant about. My phone rang. It was the hospital. There was an emergency consultation. I'll be right there. I hung up the phone without a shred of hesitation. I opened the door and left. On the drive to the hospital, the sunlight streaming through the car window was a bit blinding. I put on my sunglasses, turned on the car stereo, and played an upbeat blues track. It wasn't that I felt absolutely nothing in my heart. After 3 years of living together, you develop feelings even for a pet. But reason told me this was the best choice. Cut my losses early, part on good terms, and preserve my final shred of dignity. I was busy at the hospital until late into the night. Declining my colleague's invitation for late-night snacks, I booked a room at a hotel near the hospital. After taking a shower, I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window wrapped in a soft bathrobe, looking out at the city's myriad of lights. My phone was completely silent. Michael hadn't called, nor had he sent any messages. Good. He had probably seen the divorce agreement and breathed a sigh of relief. After all, getting rid of an ordinary beta spouse to welcome his fated, 100% compatible Omega was a great thing no matter how you looked at it. I poured a glass of water and took 2 sleeping pills. Tomorrow, I should probably receive the signed agreement from him. And then, we would both start our new lives. Thinking this, I closed my eyes. The sleeping pills dragged me into a deep, dreamless slumber all night. The next morning, I was woken up by my phone vibrating incessantly. Picking it up, the screen displayed over a dozen missed calls, all from Michael. There were also several text messages. The earliest one was a single question mark sent at 3 a.m. Then, at 5 a.m., "Oliver, what is the meaning of this?" The most recent one was from 10 minutes ago. "Where are you?" The tone of each message grew increasingly urgent. Even through the screen, I could picture his furrowed brow. This reaction was a bit beyond my expectations. Logically speaking, upon seeing the divorce agreement and the compatibility report, shouldn't he have happily gone with the flow, signed it briskly, and rushed off to see his fated match? What was with this attitude of wanting to settle a score? I massaged my forehead, too lazy to call back, and simply replied with a brief text. "If you are unsatisfied with the terms of the agreement, we can renegotiate." Less than 10 seconds after the message was sent, Michael's call came through. I pressed answer, but before I could speak, his anger-laced voice blasted through the speaker. "Wife, you will come home right now, this instant." "Home?" I replied flatly. "I won't be going back. If you have objections to the divorce agreement, we can communicate online." "Who wants to communicate with you about that?" Michael interrupted me, his tone explosive. "What the hell is with that damn compatibility report? Where did you get this stuff?" "The source is legal and the report is real." I paused for a moment before adding, "As for the divorce agreement, I think the conditions are very reasonable. Of course, if you feel the compensation is too high, it can be adjusted." "Oliver." Michael growled my name, his breathing heavy. "Do you know what a 100% compatibility rate means?" "I know." I remained perfectly calm. "It means heaven's chosen match. It means absolute phenomenal attraction. It means you are each other's optimal physiological and psychological choice. Congratulations, Mr. Michael." Dead silence fell over the other end of the line. After a very long time, Michael squeezed a sentence out through gritted teeth. "So, you want to divorce me because of this?" "Why else?" I let out a soft laugh. "Mr. Michael, we are both adults. We should face reality rationally. You need an Omega who is a 100% match for you, and I do not want to be the person standing in the way of your destiny. Parting on good terms is best for everyone." "Parting on good terms?" Michael repeated those words, his tone incredibly strange. "Oliver, do you have a F***king heart? A heart?" I subconsciously touched my chest. "Maybe I do. But after seeing the so-called arrangements of destiny clearly, that tiny, insignificant bit of affection and attachment had long been suppressed by reason. If there are no other issues, I will have my lawyer contact you shortly." Michael abruptly hung up the phone. Listening to the busy tone, I sighed helplessly. It seemed communication had failed. "Oh well, we'll just go straight to the legal procedures." I got up, preparing to wash up and head to the hospital. I still had to go to work. I didn't have time to play these boring listen to my explanation / I won't listen melodramas with Michael. However, when I finished getting ready and pulled open my hotel room door, I froze. Michael was standing right outside. His dress shirt was a wrinkled mess, his tie askew. There were deep dark circles under his eyes, and a bluish stubble coated his jaw. He looked haggard and dangerous. Those deep black eyes were completely bloodshot, staring at me fixedly like a wild beast backed into a corner. "You!" I never expected him to track me down directly to this place. Without a word of explanation, Michael grabbed my wrist with terrifying strength, dragged me back into the room, and slammed the door shut behind him with a loud bang. "Michael, what are you doing?" I frowned, trying to pull away, but his fingers were like iron clamps, completely immovable. "What am I doing?" Michael pinned me against the door panel. His scorching breath, mixed with the strong scent of alcohol, sprayed against my face, making it hard to breathe. "Oliver, I should be the one asking what you are trying to do. Leaving a divorce agreement without a word and running away? Just because of that trash compatibility report." "It's not a trash report. It's scientific evidence." I turned my head away, avoiding his overly intense gaze. "Let go of me. There's no need for us to act like this." "No need." He let out a low chuckle, his voice incredibly hoarse. "Do you think things between us can be ended with a single piece of paper? That is what the law dictates. F***ck the law. Michael suddenly slammed his fist into the door panel right next to my ear, producing a dull thud. I'm asking you, Oliver, what have I been in your eyes these past 3 years? Trash that you can just throw away whenever you want. Looking at Michael's face, twisted with anger, a surge of impatience rose in my heart. Michael, be reasonable. I am the one proposing the divorce, but the cause lies with you. You brought Noah back. You two have a 100% compatibility rate. This is a fact, not me throwing an unreasonable tantrum. So you just sentenced me to death? Without even giving me a chance to explain. Michael's eyes were actually a little red, his voice sounding as aggrieved as a child. Did you ever ask me? Did you ever ask if I even wanted that so-called heaven's chosen match? Chapter 3. I was stunned. According to my expectations, Michael should have been secretly rejoicing, and then half-heartedly accepted the arrangements of destiny. How did it suddenly look like I was the heartless one? Michael, I tried to calm him down. You know better than I do what a 100% pheromone compatibility means. It's an attraction carved into your genes. It's instinct. You might be able to resist it with willpower now, but what about in the long run? Can you guarantee you'll never be affected? Rather than ending up despising each other later, it's better to just separate cleanly now. He stared at me fixedly, his eyes looking as if they wanted to swallow me alive. Instinct? Hey! Michael pulled a smile that was uglier than crying. Oliver, have you never loved me at all? Love? Married for 3 years, Michael and I treated each other with mutual respect. We were the model couple in the eyes of outsiders. Michael would remember my birthday, have his assistant deliver late-night snacks when I worked overtime, and rely on my company during his rut. I would manage the trivial matters of his life, prepare warm, nourishing medicinal meals when his stomach hurt, and comfort him and offer advice when his commercial rivals made things difficult. We had a tacit understanding. We were in sync, like two perfectly meshed gears. But love? I didn't know. Perhaps my heart had fluttered for him, but in the face of the plot and destiny, that little bit of affection seemed insignificant. It wasn't enough to make me act like a moth drawn to a flame, betting on a doomed ending. My silence seemed to completely devastate Michael. He slowly released his grip on me, took a step back, and stumbled slightly. I understand, he muttered to himself, looking at me with hollow eyes. So it turns out, it was always just my own wishful thinking. Suddenly, he pulled out his phone. His fingers trembled as he tapped the screen a few times, then held it up in front of my face. On the screen was an appointment interface for a specialized gland hospital. Appointment procedure, alpha pheromone gland excision surgery, appointment time. Today, 3 p.m. My pupils violently contracted. Are you crazy? For an alpha, the gland is the source of their power and a symbol of their identity. Excision not only means losing their pheromones, but it is highly likely to cause a series of severe sequelae, even endangering their life. Crazy. Michael looked at me, a dismal curve forming at the corner of his lips. Yeah, I am crazy. From the moment you left that divorce agreement, I went crazy. Oliver, didn't you say what I need is an omega? Aren't you disgusted that my pheromones will be attracted to someone else? Then I don't want them anymore. If I cut my gland out, I won't be affected by omega pheromones. If I do that, do I have the right to stay by your side? Michael's voice grew lower and lower, carrying both fragility and madness. I looked at this man, usually commanding the winds and clouds in the business world, cold and dominant, who now looked like a helpless child, using the most extreme methods in an attempt to grasp what he was about to lose. My heart felt like it was tightly gripped by an invisible hand, aching with a suffocating pressure. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and tried hard to suppress the emotions churning in my chest. Michael, stop messing around. He looked at me stubbornly, his gaze obstinate. I raised a hand to massage my stinging temples, my tone helpless. Love is not possession. Noah is your fated match. This is the arrangement of destiny. Let's just accept reality. Okay? After saying those words, I felt as if all the strength had been drained from my body. Destiny was like a massive, invisible net, trapping both him and me firmly within it. Struggling seemed entirely futile. Michael stared at me intently, looking for a very, very long time. He didn't say another word. He just silently put his phone away and left the room without a sound. After Michael left, the room still carried the lingering scent of his out-of-control pheromones, like the embers after a storm. I leaned against the door panel and slowly slid down to sit on the floor. My temples throbbed with pain. The development of things had completely derailed from my pre-planned, parting on good terms script. Cutting out his gland? How could Michael have such a crazy idea? This wasn't like the Michael I knew, who was always calm and weighed the pros and cons. The Michael I knew maintained basic reason and restraint, even during the most vulnerable moments of his rut. Could it be that the pheromonal disturbance brought on by a 100% compatibility rate affected him more than I imagined? To the point that it made him lose his usual judgment? Or was it because I proposed a divorce? Because I calmly pushed him toward his so-called fated match? A faint, stinging pain came from a certain corner of my heart, which I forcibly ignored. Now was not the time to analyze Michael's psychological state. The most pressing matter was to stop him from doing something stupid. I immediately took out my phone and dialed his number. Turned off. I then called his special assistant, William. The call connected quickly, William's voice carrying his usual professional caution. "Hello, madam. Assistant William. Is Michael with you? Mr. Michael?" He rushed back briefly just now. He looked terrible, grabbed his car keys and left again. "Has he not contacted you? Did he mention where he was going? Like, a hospital? A hospital? No. Mr. Michael only instructed me to cancel all his itinerary arrangements for today." William paused, asking carefully, "Has something happened?" "Nothing." I hung up the phone, the unease in my heart growing heavier. Canceling all his appointments. Was Michael truly dead set on getting his gland excised? What a lunatic. I tried contacting that specialized gland hospital to cancel Michael's appointment. However, citing patient privacy, the hospital refused to provide any information. As time ticked by, Michael's scheduled surgery time drew closer. I was on pins and needles. Although reason told me Michael was an adult alpha who should be responsible for his own actions, the matter started because of me, making it impossible for me to stay completely out of it. If something really happened to him, because of me, I didn't dare think about it. At 2:30 p.m., unable to sit still any longer, I grabbed my car keys and rushed out of the hotel. I had to stop him. Just as I started the car and prepared to drive out of the parking lot, my phone vibrated. It was an anonymous message containing only an address. West Suburbs, Blue Bay Villa District, A07. Blue Bay Villa? This was another property under Michael's name. The location was remote and he rarely went there. Why would he go there instead of the hospital? I stared at the message, hesitating for a moment. But thinking of the extreme actions Michael might take, I turned the steering wheel and drove toward the west suburbs. Along the way, I continuously tried to contact Michael, but his phone remained turned off. An hour later, I arrived at the standalone villa hidden deep within the woods. The environment was tranquil, but it also exuded an isolated loneliness. The villa's front door had a keypad lock. I tried entering my birthday. With a beep, the door unlocked. The interior design was the cold, hard style Michael had always preferred. The main color palette was black, white, and gray, with clean lines, but it lacked any signs of life. "Michael," I called out tentatively. No response. I followed the stairs up to the second floor. The door to the master bedroom was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, and the sight before me made my breath hitch. Michael stood with his back to me, facing the floor-to-ceiling window. He was only wearing a white dress shirt, and his back was almost entirely soaked with sweat, clinging to his skin and outlining his taut muscles. Scattered on the floor were torn pieces of paper. I recognized them. They were the fragments of the divorce agreement and compatibility report I had left behind. But what alarmed me the most was the chaotic and incredibly powerful aura permeating the room, the source of which was him. "Michael!" I called out again, my voice subconsciously softening. Michael slowly turned around. His eyes were blood red, churning with thick, heavy emotions. His black bangs were drenched in sweat, plastered messily to his skin, and a near-demonic flush stained his handsome face. He looked at me, the corners of his lips slowly curving up. "Wife, you're finally here. You didn't go to the hospital?" I frowned. Just as the relief washed over my heart, it was pulled right back up by his strange appearance. "Hospital?" Michael gave a low chuckle, walking toward me step by step. "What would I do there? Cut out my gland? And then what? Become a cripple? Giving you even more of a reason to abandon me?" He stopped in front of me. His tall figure loomed over me, carrying an intense, oppressive presence. "Did you think I would give you that chance?" I subconsciously stepped back, my back hitting the wall. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" He reached out and gently stroked my cheek, sending a shiver through my body. "I just want to make you understand." His voice suddenly turned freezing cold, carrying an unquestionable dominance. Love is not possession. Bullshit. Love is possession. As his words fell, a powerful wave of alpha pheromones erupted like a tide, instantly filling the entire room and wrapping tightly around me. I let out a muffled groan. My legs went weak, and I almost couldn't stand. As a beta, my sensitivity to pheromones was nowhere near that of an omega. But right now, this power was too strong, too tyrannical, causing me physiological discomfort. Michael, calm down. I tried to push him away, but he easily caught my wrists and pinned them behind my back. Calm down. He lowered his head, his hot breath spraying against my neck. When you threw me to someone else without a second thought, did you ever consider letting me calm down? In your eyes is our marriage. Am I just trash that can be thrown away at any time? His interrogations grew louder with each word, laced with pain and fury. No, I wanted to explain. I wanted to tell him I was just trying to avoid a worse outcome. But the intense pheromones and the way he had me pinned made my mind a chaotic mess. No what? He suddenly lowered his head and kissed my lips fiercely. I struggled and pushed him, but it was completely useless. An out-of-control alpha held absolute superiority in strength. Let go. Michael. You bastard. Broken words squeezed out through my teeth. Yes, I am a bastard. Michael panted against my lips, admitting it with a gaze that was both crazed and burning hot. So, don't even think I'll let go. Didn't you want a divorce? Didn't you want to push me to that omega? Well, I refuse. Michael scooped me up and threw me onto the large bed behind us. His scorching body followed, pressing down and completely casting me in shadow. In this life, and the next, don't even think about leaving me. Since you refuse to stay willingly. He tore open the collar of my shirt. The cool air hitting my skin made me shudder. Michael's burning lips followed, leaving clear marks along my collarbone and neck. Then I will lock you by my side, until you realize. His movements were fierce and urgent, carrying a destructive desperation and possessiveness. That love is possession. It is my complete and total monopoly over you. The physical pain, the oppressive pheromones, and the madness in Michael's words formed an airtight net, trapping me securely within it. My strength to resist slowly faded. My consciousness gradually blurred amidst the intense impact and chaotic aura. Before completely losing consciousness, I heard Michael's choked voice repeating over and over again, "Wife, you are mine. You can only be mine." Chapter 4. When I woke up, the soreness all over my body reminded me that everything last night was not a dream. The air still lingered with the ambiguous scent of the intense aftermath, mixed with Michael's overbearing pheromones that smelled of strong spirits, like a brand marking his absolute ownership. I shifted slightly, and a wave of soreness immediately shot through my waist. A certain unspeakable place felt swollen and painful. I drew in a sharp breath of cold air and abandoned the idea of getting up immediately. Looking around, the bedsheets and bedding had been changed. My body had also been cleaned and dressed in fresh silk pajamas. "You're awake." A deep, hoarse voice came from the doorway. Michael was leaning against the doorframe wearing loungewear, holding a glass of water in his hand. He looked much calmer, the bloodshot redness in his eyes having faded, but deep within those black eyes, there was still an unyielding paranoia. He offered the glass of water to me. I didn't take it, merely looking at him quietly. Michael's outstretched hand froze in midair. His eyes darkened, and his Adam's apple bobbed. "Drink some water first." He lowered his voice, carrying a coaxing tone, and pushed the glass forward a bit more. I still didn't move. Silence spread through the room. Finally, as if compromising, he placed the glass on the nightstand, sat on the edge of the bed, and tried to reach out to touch my face. I turned my head to dodge it. His hand stopped in midair, his fingertips curling slightly. "Does it hurt?" I twitched the corners of my mouth. "Doesn't Mr. Michael think it's a bit redundant to ask this now?" His face paled a little. "Last night." Michael wanted to explain, but under my icy stare, those words seemed so useless. "Last night, you proved an alpha's strength and possessiveness." I interrupted him. "And then what? Now that you've proved it, are you going to keep me locked up here? Using this method to maintain your so-called love?" "I'm not." A flash of panic crossed his eyes. He tried to grab my hand, but I dodged him again. "Michael?" I looked at him, enunciating every word clearly. "Acting like this only makes me feel disgusted." Michael stood up abruptly, his chest heaving violently, his pheromones uncontrollably acting up again. "Disgusted?" he growled, his eyes fierce. "Even if you're disgusted, you have to endure it. Don't even think about leaving me in this lifetime. Is that so? I met his gaze without a trace of fear. You can lock up my body, but can you lock up my heart? Or are you saying you just need a walking corpse? He stared at me dead on, looking as if he wanted to swallow me whole. His fists were tightly clenched, the veins bulging on the backs of his hands. We just stared at each other like this, as if sparks of electricity were colliding in the air. After a long time, looking as if all his strength had been drained, Michael stumbled back a step. His voice was hoarse and broken. Wife, what exactly do you want me to do? Let me go. Impossible. He refused without a second thought, his eyes turning stubborn once more. I closed my eyes and stopped looking at him. From that day on, I was under house arrest in this villa. My range of activity was limited to the inside of the villa and the small garden outside. All my communication devices were confiscated, the internet was cut off, and there were bodyguards watching inside and out. Michael canceled almost all his unnecessary social engagements and came back punctually every day. He tried to restore our previous way of interacting, cooking himself, finding topics to chat about, and even clumsily trying to take care of me. But I remained very calm, calmly eating, calmly reading, calmly accepting his care, and calmly rejecting all his intimacy. Like a pool of stagnant water, without a single ripple. My calmness seemed to make him suffer more than fierce resistance would have. Michael grew increasingly anxious, and his ruts seemed to become more frequent. Sometimes he would uncontrollably release his pheromones, pacing back and forth in the room like a caged beast, asking me with red eyes what he had to do for me to forgive him. I never responded. Only occasionally, in the dead of night, I would feel a bout of nausea and an inexplicable exhaustion. At first, I thought it was just physical discomfort caused by my bad mood, until one morning, I dry heaved in the bathroom for a long time without throwing anything up. An absurd thought flashed across my mind. As a doctor, I knew all too well what this meant. The chance of a beta getting pregnant is very low, especially with an alpha. But it's not impossible, especially when the other party fully marked me, and did it so many times. My heart sank bit by bit. When the family doctor was anxiously called over by Michael, finished examining me, and smiled saying, "Congratulations, Mr. Michael, your wife is pregnant." The entire living room felt terrifyingly quiet. Michael froze. The expression on his face shifted from worry to surprise, and then to a complex mix of joy and extreme caution. He suddenly looked at me, his lips moving as if he wanted to say something. As for me, I just sat quietly on the sofa, head lowered, looking at my still flat stomach with no expression. As expected, fate had played another sick joke. The child was like a suddenly appearing shackle, firmly chaining down my steps to leave. I could no longer easily say divorce and leave. I couldn't selfishly deprive the child of a father. Nor could I take the child to live a life of hiding and anonymity. Michael clearly understood this as well. He was overjoyed and kept an even tighter watch on me, practically never leaving my side. All factors that could potentially be bad for the pregnancy were eliminated. My diet and daily life were taken care of by professional nutritionists and a nursing team. The way Michael looked at me was filled with an almost reverent expectation. But occasionally, when I stared blankly out the window, a trace of unease would still flash through his eyes. He was afraid I still wanted to leave. My pregnancy symptoms gradually became more pronounced. I loved to sleep, had no energy, my taste became picky, and my emotions were unstable. Sometimes I would get irritable over trivial matters, and sometimes I would go for long periods without speaking. Michael became exceptionally patient and very obedient. If I frowned, he would immediately put down his work and ask me what was wrong. Whatever I casually mentioned I wanted to eat, no matter how late it was, he would find a way to get it. When I lost my temper for no reason due to hormonal changes, he would just listen silently and then clumsily try to coax me. He even signed up for pregnancy care classes, learning how to massage a pregnant person and how to listen to the fetal heartbeat. Watching Michael carefully holding a pregnancy guide, frowning as he took notes, or gently rubbing my legs with a tender gaze, it wasn't that I felt nothing in my heart. But the cracks of the past were not that easy to mend. That day, my morning sickness had eased a bit, and my appetite improved, so I ate a few more bites of the bird's nest soup he had stewed. Michael looked like a child who had just received candy, staring at me with sparkling eyes. I put down the spoon, wiped my mouth, and looked up at him. "Michael." He leaned in immediately, his expression focused. "I won't leave before the child is born," I said calmly. The light in his eyes dimmed for a moment, but quickly lit up again. "I understand. However," I paused for a moment, meeting his suddenly nervous gaze. There are some things I need to make clear first. First, without my consent, you cannot force me like you did before. His face turned pale and he nodded immediately. I won't. Never again, I promise. Second, I need space to move around. At least within this villa and the garden. I don't want to be constantly watched. He hesitated for a moment, but under my insistent gaze, he finally compromised. All right, I'll have the bodyguards keep their distance. Third, I looked at him, my tone serious. If in the future, you meet someone who moves your heart, or a so-called fated match, please tell me directly. We can discuss divorce and co-parent the child. There is no one else. Michael suddenly grabbed my hand, gripping it tightly, his voice carrying suppressed agitation. There never was anyone else. Not before and not in the future. Wife, what exactly do you want for you to believe me? I looked at him quietly, saying nothing. Whether I believed him or not was no longer important. What mattered was that I needed to set boundaries and safeguards for myself, and for this unexpectedly arriving child. My calmness was like a basin of cold water, extinguishing his agitation. Michael let go of my hand, his shoulders slumping as if all his strength had been drained. He kept his head lowered for a long time before saying in a hoarse voice, "Okay, I promise you." Also, I added, "Give my phone back to me and restore the internet. I'm a doctor. I need to keep up with professional developments." This time, Michael didn't hesitate much and nodded. Chapter 5. Life entered a period of tranquility. Michael carefully abided by our agreement, doing his best to meet all my demands like the most loyal guard. He no longer spoke of love or possession, simply proving his dedication every day through his actions. In the second trimester, the fetal movements became more pronounced. The first time I felt that tiny flutter, like a butterfly flapping its wings, I was leaning against the sofa reading a book. My entire body froze. Michael was sitting right next to me, reviewing some documents. He immediately noticed my reaction and asked nervously, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" I shook my head, subconsciously placing my hand over my lower abdomen. He realized what was happening, and his eyes instantly lit up. He asked tentatively, "Can I touch?" I watched him wanting to get closer but not quite daring to. After a few seconds of silence, I gave a gentle nod. He immediately put down his documents. Practically holding his breath, he placed his large, warm hand incredibly softly against my belly. When that tiny force pushed back again, transmitting through the layer of flesh right into his palm, I clearly saw the rims of his eyes turn red. He looked up at me, his eyes moist, carrying a humble, vulnerable gratitude. At that moment, a crack seemed to form in my frozen heart. Let it be. For the sake of this unexpectedly arriving little life, I would try to give us another chance. I raised my eyes to look at the setting sun outside the window. The sky was filled with rosy clouds, warm and peaceful. I withdrew my gaze, letting it fall upon the alpha beside me, who looked a bit foolish just from feeling the baby kick. He seemed to sense my gaze and looked up at me as well. Our eyes met. In Michael's eyes was an undisguised emotion, as deep and profound as the sea. And this time I did not look away. If you enjoyed this story, remember to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.